Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Kathleen Walter. With us now is New York Times best-selling author Laurence Leamer. He's the author of 14 books, including The Kennedy Women and Madness Under the Royal Palms. He's also written about the Reagans, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and other political icons. His newest book is called The Price of Justice, a true story of greed and corruption. And Mr. Leamer, so good to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you've written a book based on the true story of Don Blankenship, the former head of Massey Energy, and the two lawyers who took him on. It's a legal thriller, a departure of sorts from the books that you normally write. What can you tell us about this? Why did you choose this as a story?
Well, 40 years ago, I went down, I was living in New York, and I went down to West Virginia, and I worked in a coal mine as a journalist, incognito, to explore what it's like to be a coal miner. And I became fascinated by that region. And 3 years ago, I was reading a story in the New York Times that talked about this man who owned a small coal mine in southwestern Virginia, Hugh Caperton, and how Massey Energy and Don Blankenship, its chairman, the most powerful coal baron in American history, drove it into bankruptcy. So I went down and met Hugh Caperton, and then I met the two lawyers who for 14 years have been fighting his case, and I decided to do it. And when I finished, I sent the galleys to John Grisham. And John Grisham said that he read the book in a day, and he said that it's superb, and he says, I wish I'd written this book. Well, in a way he did, because he had a legal thriller called The Appeal, and he took part of this story, and that was his novel. But the true story is far more complicated. It goes it's far richer in material. In fact, if it were a novel, people would say it's not true. It can't possibly be true.
What can you tell us about Don Blankenship? He's almost a Shakespearean villain of sorts.
Yeah, well, Publishers Weekly, that's exactly what the Publishers Weekly said. He's a villain for the ages. But he's a poor kid from West Virginia. He grew up with nothing in a house without indoor plumbing, and he struggled, and he became in a family-based Massey Energy, he became the chief, and he wanted to change the whole realities of West Virginia. He had some good ideas and some bad ideas. The good ideas was the welfare system was kind of corrupt, and there's a lot of corruption in the union. That was fine. But he also felt that the bottom line was all that mattered, and he didn't really care about the safety of his miners the way he should have, though he asserts that he does. And he was going to do anything to destroy his competition. And that's what he did to Caperton, he would figure, okay, I'll destroy him, maybe he's going to sue me, but suing is just the cost of doing business. He didn't think of the social and economic consequences of doing such things.
So what does his story tell us about the relations between politics, business, and justice?
Well, justice is the final resort for Americans. When you could go nowhere else, you have to go to the court and seek and find true justice. And in most instances, Americans find that. But when it gets corrupted by money or by politics, that ends, and that's an immense danger to American democracy. And that's what happened in West Virginia. It happened in the West Virginia Supreme Court particularly.
So talk to us about these two attorneys who took on Blankenship and how they took this case all the way to the Supreme Court.
Well, they took it in contingency, and their law firm, Reed Smith, is one of the 15 largest law firms in the world, spent millions of dollars fighting this because they thought they should do it. They lost time and time again, but they've kept it up for all these 14 years.
Now, in Caperton, the justices ruled that the wealthy and powerful are not entitled to purchase their own brand of law. Do you think effects from that ruling are still being felt today, and if so, how?
Well, what happened, why the judges made this ruling, was that Blankenship, Caperton fought a lawsuit and won a $50 million judgment in West Virginia. Blankenship was outraged at this, and he spent $3 million to elect a justice to the West Virginia Supreme Court who would vote his way. Never in American history has anybody spent so much money in a judicial election. And the Supreme Court justices ruled, you can't do this. You can't spend that kind of money. And that has had a great impact on American society. Now, the lawyer that was the lawyer that took it was Ted Olson, who's the leading conservative appellate lawyer in America. But he believed in this case, and he won it before the justices.
Now, it's been said that President Obama is waging an attack not only on corporate America, but also on the rich. He says everybody's got to play by the same set of rules and pay their fair share. Do you think that these attacks are fair, considering that not everybody who is wealthy made their money in the same manner as Don Blankenship?
Well, no, most people don't. most people. I live in Palm Beach half the year, and most of the money there's new money that people had started with very little, and that's great. And anything we can have to have a more entrepreneurial society is fine with me.
Now, since we're speaking about greed and corruption, I have to ask you about Bernie Madoff and Palm Beach. I know you've written extensively on Palm Beach, where the season is now winding down. How has Palm Beach and the society there rebounded in the wake of the Madoff scandal?
Well, it's come back because new money has come in. But these scams go on and on. This kind of scam, because it plays on the greed of people. As long as there's a human race, we're going to have greed and people taking advantage of it.
Now, while we have you here, Laurence, I'd like to get your take on some other stories making headlines this week, beginning with tragedy in Great Britain, the death and the passing of Lady Margaret Thatcher. I know you've written also about Ronald Reagan. What kind of legacy do you think Lady Thatcher leaves?
Well, she's, one of the most important women of the 20th century. She radically changed British society. And she and Ronald Reagan were close friends and worked together.
Now, Caroline Kennedy might become the next U.S. ambassador to Japan. What do you make of this, and do you think that she's qualified for such a position?
Well, I think she's far more qualified to be ambassador than to be the senator from New York. When she ran for about two minutes, she really was uncomfortable with the press and doing interviews. But I think she would probably do a good job.
And what about Arnold Schwarzenegger? Could he make a political comeback?
Arnold Schwarzenegger is finished. He's finished in terms of films. He's finished in terms of politics. He ended up immensely unpopular in politics, and his recent films have bombed.
All right. Well, again, the book is called The Price of Justice, a true story of greed and corruption. It'll be published on May 7th. Laurence Leamer, congratulations on the book. It's a terrific read.
Thanks, Kathleen.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.